That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth outing for the iconic character played by Harrison Ford. This is the first film not to be directed by Steven Spielberg. It's directed by James Mangold, which is his 12th feature. Premiered at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival, out of competition, of course. Walt Disney Studios is releasing it June 30th, 2023.
Do I know a James Mangold film?
James Mangold.
Mangold?
Yeah, because he also inherited some X-Men offshoots. He did the Wolverine and Logan, in which his Boyd Holbrook also had starred in that. His last film was Ford versus Ferrari, which I don't believe you saw, which was fine. I think at the beginning of his career, I thought Mangold is very promising, shaping up to be kind of like a Joseph L. Mankiewicz type of his generation with his debut Heavy, Copland with Sylvester Stallone, which is a film I really like, and Girl Interrupted. He also directed Identity with John Cusack. Of course, Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. He remade 3:10 to Yuma.
You doing all 12?
And then there was that... And he did a Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz movie, Night and Day, which I remember that flopped at the box office, and then there was all this to-do about how everybody was like apologetic to Tom Cruise about its flop status, which is bizarre. Anyhow, here we are with Indiana Jones for the fifth time.
So there are 3 movies from the 80s.
Yes.
And I recently watched the first 2. Mm-hmm. And then there's a 4th one from like 10 years ago?
2008.
Okay.
Which was written by David Koepp, who returns as one of the 3 screenwriters here, including Jez and John Henry Butterworth.
So I've only seen the first 2. They're fun.
You've seen The Last Crusade with me years and years ago.
Oh, I did? Mm-hmm. Okay.
With Sean Connery as his dad?
No. I thought this movie was okay.
I made us rewatch Raiders of the Lost Ark this past week because I think that's the best of the 3, even though
the first one?
Yes, even though my heart kind of goes to Temple of Doom and how that made me feel as a child. But
I like the second one better.
It's doing a lot more, but I think to me Raiders is a more cohesive film and a little less ridiculous. But I was going into this thinking that I would be sorely disappointed in that this would be pure nostalgia porn. So I'm glad that I didn't come out feeling like that.
I like the second one more because it is ridiculous, but it feels like an adventure. This one didn't feel like an adventure to me, which is funny because there's a character from the first movie, I think,
Sallah,
in this movie, and he asks Indy, like, can I go with you to go on an adventure? And Indy says, this is not an adventure. And I was like, work, girl, it's not an adventure, but...
and Karen Allen's Marion is also returning from the first film.
Yes, but the story. Archaeologist Indiana Jones races against time to retrieve a legendary artifact that can change the course of history. That's very vague. So the artifact is the Antikythera.
Mm-hmm. The Archimedes dial.
So it's this timepiece. It looks like a very expensive timepiece, but it's big like a small pizza. And it's understood that this timepiece can calculate coordinates that will allow for time travel.
They will find fissures in time.
So Mads Mikkelsen plays a Nazi who we're introduced to at the opening of the film in the 1940s, during the end of World War II.
The last gasps right before liberation.
So that's the opening of the film, like the first 20 minutes. Which I thought were excellent, actually.
Jürgen Voller.
Because we see Indy and his best friend, played by Toby Jones.
Basil Shaw.
They are on this train, this Nazi train that is transporting what we're told are half the world's antiquities. So they're trying to stop the train, but they're also looking,
which is much like John Frankenheimer's The Train or Monuments Men, the George Clooney film.
Toby Keith is looking for this dial. Toby Jones.
Well, first...
I don't know what Toby Keith is doing, actually, but...
There's a MacGuffin first. There's a lance that Hitler wants that apparently touched Jesus' blood. But the one that they think they've acquired is a fake. And that's where Toby Jones says there's something much more worthwhile.
Right, but... I'm trying to tell the base story because this thing is there's a lot going on. But anyway, Mads Mikkelsen is a Nazi who also knows about the Antikythera and its potential powers. So he's on the train trying to get that. and of course, there's a long sequence with like a chase and blah, blah, blah. Toby Jones and Indy are able to take the Antikythera, but the gag is it's been split in half. Archimedes split it in half because he didn't want anyone to be able to use it, I guess, or get into the wrong hands. So we flash forward to the 1970s, and we see Indiana Jones is an older man. The cat is harassing us. So now Harrison Ford, who appears to be like in his 80s, is close to retirement. He works at a college teaching archaeology.
As he always has.
And we see that Toby Jones' daughter, Helena, who's all grown up now.
Played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge of Fleabag.
She hasn't seen Indy in like 18 years, we're told, but she pops up talking about she's getting her PhD in archaeology. And Indy's like, what are you studying? And she goes, the Antikythera.
She's like, based on my calculations, where you jumped off this train, it should be at the bottom of this riverbed.
She's hella aggressive about like, you need to help me find this thing. We find out that the last time she saw Indy, that Indy had to go to her dad's house to have like an intervention because Toby Jones had become mad over the idea of solving like Archimedes' work. Like he was going crazy. So Indiana Jones had to show up and snatch the thing and tell him like, I'm destroying it because you're going to go crazy. But of course, Indy didn't destroy it. So now that old girl's here acting real suspicious, he's like, well, actually, let me show it to you. I didn't, like, it was so stupid. Like, you can't tell this lady has some weird intentions. But another layer to the story is Mads Mikkelsen, looking the same age he did 40 years prior, 30 years prior.
They did de-age him in the early scenes.
He looks very similar.
Sure.
Compared to how Harrison Ford looks.
Yes.
Because the de-aging of Harrison Ford in the 1940s looks fantastic.
It does, but the voice,
He still sounds like an old man, and
Uh-huh.
that was weird. But anyway, this other layer of the story is that Mads is still in the picture, but he's assumed a false identity, and he works for the U.S. government. He's a physicist, and his calculations are what got a man to the moon. So the U.S. government is very grateful to him, and as a gift, they're trying to help him find the Antikythera because, of course, no one believes that it can aid in time travel. So he has a CIA with him, plus his henchmen, one of whom is Boyd Holbrook, with a full-on
Southern,
good old Texas boy accent.
and he has a name. I think his character name is Kleber, and I looked up to see if that meant anything, and actually, that's a German name that means one who hangs posters.
Oh,
So that'd be your name.
that'd be my name. I've hung a lot of posters in my day. But anyway, so Helena, in an effort to snatch this timepiece from Indy, brings along the bad guys.
She doesn't know that they're following.
She doesn't know, but then there's a chase.
And they're working in collusion with the CIA, actually, because there's an Agent Mason played by Shaunette Renée Wilson.
Who's beautiful.
Beautiful, and trying to kind of keep them in line.
But she has no control over Mads and his people.
Because they're just starting to kill people, and she's like, whoa.
But anyway, of course, Indy and Helena get away. They go to Morocco because the gag is Helena doesn't want the timepiece for any sort of like archaeological value to put it in a museum or to actually try to test time travel. This heifer wants to sell the timepiece because she has some gambling debt in Morocco she wants to settle. That drove me crazy, and we can get more into it. So they end up in Morocco. Indy follows her there. She's trying to sell the shit. Mads shows up, steals it. And then there's like a sequence where they're trying to get it back. They do. But of course, Mads needs the other half of the timepiece. So they know that there's something called start with a G, the directions.
Oh, they have to find that the directions Archimedes printed, which
Are at the bottom of the ocean.
are at the bottom of the ocean in an old Roman centurion boat.
So Antonio Banderas shows up as a diver, and he helps them get to the bottom of the ocean.
Ronaldo.
They get the directions. But the gag is those directions are like nonsense because the second half of the dial is inside of the directions. So Indiana Jones figures that out. They go to, they end up in Sicily and
Find the tomb of Archimedes.
find the tomb of Archimedes, and there's a final showdown. And Mads does get the completed timepiece, and he gets the coordinates to do time travel. And his goal, the reason he wants it, is this fool wants to go back to the 1930s and kill Hitler because he thinks he can be a better Hitler. He says, oh, I saw all the mistakes he made, so I'm going to go back and do it right. Because I think, like, he was saying that the Nazis could have had 1,000 years of reign. So that's what he wants. So he's like a super villain.
Which is some faction of Nazis actually were exploring, because that film Valkyrie with Tom Cruise is all about a group of Nazis who didn't care about the Jews or him doing anything, but they wanted to kill Hitler because they thought he was failing.
The best gag of the movie, and what I thought the story should have been, is that Archimedes was no fool. That timepiece, the coordinates for time travel that he conjured up, the coordinates are to bring anyone who figures it out back to his ass in 214 BC so he can see if his shit worked. I thought that was brilliant. And I really wish the film would have been that. But anyway, of course, everyone ends up in, 2,000 years prior.
In the Battle of Syracuse. Mm-hmm.
Of course, the bad guys get killed. Indian Helena and her little minion, who we can talk about.
Teddy.
They all get back to modern day, which is the 1970s. And the final scene is that Helena has arranged it so that Indy can reunite with
Marion, played by Karen Allen.
Who they are no longer married. They're estranged because I guess Shia LaBeouf died.
Shia LaBeouf played Mutt.
Mutt Williams or what?
Yes, in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which nobody seemed to like that character. So he's conveniently apparently served in Vietnam and got killed.
The end. Wow. I don't have many notes because
It feels like one long chase scene, and it's kind of mutated version of that. We got to find an object, but actually we have to find two parts of the object and an additional integral piece to get to said part.
This story to me felt a lot like Transformers: Rise of the Beast,
and many other Guardians of the Galaxy. Any other film. But and to be fair, the early Indiana Jones films, he is on a quest to find these objects that are meaningful for whatever reason.
Calling back to the original film, we have Marion, we have the taxi driver
Sallah.
guy,
Mm-hmm.
we have like creepy crawly creatures. So
there's a scene with eels.
who he thinks are snakes.
Yeah, well, because that's what he hates the least,
Yep.
I think.
Or the most.
Because from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I remember that.
Temple of Doom is bugs. We get some bugs in here.
We
with
get some centipedes, yeah.
And then rats are... I forget what was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which has some aliens in it.
Okay, a scene I really did like was so we see Mads on the day I think Indiana Jones retires from the college is the same day that the United States sends a man to the moon. So Mads is in the same city because he's trying to get that damn clock. So everyone's celebrating. He's in the hotel, and then a room service attendant comes in, a black man, and Mads is eyeing him up and down, and he's asking if he served in the military, and he said yes, and he's basically telling him well, how did that work out for you? And
how was your victory?
Yeah, it was real cold. I thought that was really well done to establish him as an awful person.
As was, he's being interviewed about his accomplishments, about conquering space, and he's asked, "Oh, what are you gonna?" I'm going to conquer something else next. And it's
I liked Mads. Harrison Ford's not my favorite actor, from his stuff from the 80s and 90s. I always felt like he seemed
smug,
a little too handsome to not be friendly. No one likes an unfriendly, attractive person.
He's friendly in Working.
That's why I'm always so nice. But the thing, just kidding.
He's friendly in Working Girl.
Oh yeah, sure. But that's my general impression of him. So I've never really dug Harrison Ford, but I actually think his little nasty attitude works well now as an old man because it fits. He seems crotchety. Mm-hmm. So I actually enjoyed him quite a bit in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think the movie looks great.
It was shot by Phedon Papamichael, who also shot Ford versus Ferrari for James Mangold, as well as Nebraska and Downsizing for Alexander Payne, many other things.
But yeah, this story. First of all, Helena
Shaw.
So she has her little boy I just thought that dynamic, and I know it makes sense what you said that.
They're trying to mimic. They're formatting this character to be much kind of like early Indy Jones, is kind of self-serving and self-centered, and then of course mirroring the friendship that he had with Ke Kwan's short round in Temple of Doom.
But what I remember from the first two films is that Indiana Jones' motivation was the science of archaeology,
Fortune and glory,
and like preserving things. Like he was still selfish, but it was like he wasn't that selfish. This lady is really trying to pay off gambling debt, and her ex-boyfriend, who's like a mobster, is the one she owes the money to, and he's like still in love with her, but also angry. And I didn't understand any of that. And it's like so this lady is gonna betray her, not only the honor of her dead father, who for all we know was a good dad to her and who she seemed to love. You're gonna betray your dad's best friend, who hasn't done shit to you, girl.
The redemptive character arc feels too truncated, as in not believable by the time we get to the end of it. Because if you think about how Indiana Jones felt about his father, you get 3 whole films by the time we get to his father's introduction with Sean Connery, and where that kind of relationship seems a little bit more worked out. Last Crusade, though, when I saw that as a kid, I wanted a diary, just like the Sean Connery one that he has. And, of course, that is something going on here. Harrison Ford's like, you don't memorize your father's diaries just to be so frivolous. Like you care more than you're letting on.
Then her relationship with, what's the boy's name?
Teddy, played by Ethan Isidore.
He didn't have the charm of Ke Kwan's character. I mean, they're not the same person, but still, it's like this, they paint him out as like a street rat, and it really bothered me that it's like this little brown boy that she just took, because she tells us the story of how he tried to steal her purse and she got it back, and then he never, like he just latched onto her. And it's like, for what? You don't live there. So what does this poor kid do when you're not around? And he's so invested in her, but there's no attempt made to establish, like, does she give him anything? If he helps her sell this thing, is he going to get 20%? So it really bothered me. And then I thought the ADR for that character was a little crunchy.
They skip over some important details to format that, I think, just like they do. There's a lot of conveniences taken, especially with how Mads Mikkelsen keeps catching up with them all.
Yes.
Like, so there are too many conveniences.
It's too convenient, because when they get to Sicily at the end, the little boy is just like getting some ice cream, and he walks onto the pier, and Matt's sitting right there.
Yeah, and
how did he get there so fast?
I don't know. Just like also how Teddy's like, when Helena tells him, can you fly that plane? He's like, sure.
Well, because we get a scene where we see him practicing on like a shoebox how to fly a plane, and now he can fly this plane into a time warp. But I like Antonio Banderas. Mm-hmm. He's always really cute to me, and he's cute in this movie. Although I'm curious to know if people once they see the film, if they assume that his character is supposed to be gay.
Yeah, he has these helpmates that are very attractive.
Super attractive.
So attractive that Helena is making comments about them, and they are ignoring her.
They are looking at her like she's invisible.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen Fleabag, which I'm told that I need to catch up on by many people, and I hear it's great. She also helped retool the script for the last James Bond film, No Time to Die. But so I haven't. This is my first time seeing Phoebe Waller-Bridge on screen, and she has Helena.
Oh.
She has that. She's a tall drink of water. She reminded me a lot of Rebecca Hall or Vicky Creeps.
Okay.
Oh.
I was told I can't say what I think she looks like. Anyway, no, I didn't. The actor I don't mind. That characterization. I just didn't like her throughout the entire film. Even in the end when she reunites Indy with Maureen, Marion, I thought she was annoying. But another part of the story I really didn't like is when Mads has the chance to kill Indy, he doesn't. Mm-hmm. He just takes him along with him to do the time travel. Why?
That's because Spielberg has said that Indiana Jones shall not die. There are a lot of things that don't it's like those old stories that the original Indiana Jones is fashioned after, is these heroes that never die in all these serials.
I really wish the opening was so strong, and the gag of Archimedes setting that dial to bring anyone who figures his shit out back to him is so clever to me that I just really wish we would have got to the business of time travel sooner, because the first 2 hours of the film, we keep hearing about time travel, so you know it's going to happen. And I kept checking the time because the movie did feel long to me. And when we hit we were almost at the 2 hour mark, Then I was like, oh, we're not going to get a lot of time wherever they end up. And then when they end up in 214 or whatever BC, it looks so cool that I wish we would have spent like at least an hour there.
Sure, I like that scene too.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes is the initial car chase sequence through the streets of Tangiers.
Oh, and little go-kart?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cute.
That and I thought it looked really good. But beyond that, and I'm probably just because I'm older now, there wasn't really a moment where I had the same sense of wonder.
No.
And I kept wanting for that. Even in the script. There are a couple moments I really liked. One of the clues Archimedes has left behind is that you need to go to the place where each whisper is like a hurricane, which is an ear. Which ends up being these caves that they go to find.
I did like when Helena was figuring out, like deciphering the code on the directions. That was a fun scene.
Not only deciphering the code, but faking part of it so that she would mislead Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
There are parts of the script that work really well. I don't know. I was fine with it, although I don't know that I needed it, and I did like it better than Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
What would you give this movie?
I would give it 3 out of 5 stars.
I thought it was okay. I would give it 2.5 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.